All right, very good. Well, again, welcome everyone to our session today. We're going to talk a little bit about the hidden job market, how recruiters can find you as opposed to you doing all of the work and then being ignored. So Shelly's going to go through a little bit of that. And if you take a tidbit or two away from today's session, that's going to be very beneficial. Although we would love it if you do everything he says, it's not humanly possible. So little by little, implement some of that information and you'll see your job search change. A little bit about Shally. Shally is globally recognized as one of the pioneers in the recruitment industry. Over his 25-year career, he has helped hundreds of Fortune 500 and mid-market organizations hire tens of thousands of candidates in the most challenging industries and environments. He is a speaker and an author, and he is the director of Experience, Talent, Strategy, and Innovation Practice. He helps organizations embed key recruitment initiatives into their hiring efforts. Okay, so again, he's going to speak on the job seeker side so that you can become educated about what recruiters, executive recruiters, organizations, all of that stuff are looking for so you can become hireable or better, faster hireable. All right, well, welcome so much and I'll take it away.
Oh, great. Thank you. Let me share my screen here so they can see my slides. Everybody can see my slides. Should be showing up now. See the slides over there?
Yes, we do.
Excellent. Excellent. Great. Welcome, everybody. So the title of the presentation is Differentiate or Disappear. Kind of a little bit of a tongue in cheek there. It's not meant to scare you too much. But the whole point here is that what we're going to talk about today are ways to stand out. There's a lot of noise. There's a lot of information. There's a lot of all kinds of things on social media. So we'll go over some techniques to help you be more visible in your job search. So recruiters are more likely to reach out to you and contact you. A little bit of the laws of attraction, right? I mean, one thing is, you can go out there and you can apply for jobs, but conversation is a little bit different if they reach out to you first. So we'll talk a little bit about that. So we'll talk about differentiation. We'll talk about visibility, how to grow your own visibility, and how to make visible some of the things that you are really currently invisible to you that'll help you in your job search, and how to improve conversions. In other words, people reaching out to you through finding you on social media, on LinkedIn, or wherever it is that they found you. Let's jump right into differentiation. The key to differentiation is this. You don't need to be unique. It's very, very difficult to be the only one. It's darn near impossible to be the only one in the job market, but you definitely can be distinct and stand out. And you can be distinct and stand out in a particular market, a geography, a segment. That is more than enough to get you the right kind of attention. So you don't have to be the only one, but you do need to be the one that people think about, or the one that stands out, or the one that people find. How do we get to that? Well, there's three rules, the three C's of being distinct or being distinguished or distinguishable in social media. That is to be crisp, concise, and compelling. We've learned that interruption marketing doesn't work anymore. Interruption marketing is what you would call an advertisement on television. If you're watching a show, the show is interrupted for a commercial, and then your show continues. That's interruption marketing. We know that that's changed in a lot of ways. Some people still watch commercials on television, but a lot of folks are cutting the cord or watching things on their computers. So there's not really that advertising. Email that is interruption based, where the email lands in your inbox, essentially is considered interruption marketing or spam. And this really is not working so well. So how do we get the attention of people that we want to attract to us for employment opportunities? What matters is the audience. The channels that you use and the tools that you use are really secondary to the audience. So the first thing you've got to do is think, who am I trying to reach? What is my audience that I'm trying to reach? And then engage with that audience in a way that makes them want to engage with you. Think about it as, would you respond to this message? Would you respond to this content? Would you respond to this activity? Online social behavior is still very much social behavior. We behave online very much the same way that we behave in person, with some nuances. And as in the real world, almost everybody likes ice cream, but everybody likes different flavors. We don't all like vanilla ice cream because otherwise there wouldn't be other flavors. So it's the same thing happens with social media. People on social media all like ice cream, but some people like it in a sundae, some people like it in a cone, some people like it with chocolate or with sprinkles or without. So you have to identify, is the market that you're trying to penetrate, the jobs that you want to find, what does that audience look like? Where do they go online? And what's the behavior that you need to participate in order to be noticed? As you're starting to think about some of this, how to be crisp, concise, and compelling, I want you to pause when you're using social media and take a moment to think before you like something. By that, I mean before you like it online, not before you like it in your mind, right? But before you push the like button, before you hit send or post or publish, always think about the end that you have in mind. What is the outcome? What is the end that I have in mind for this activity? Why am I liking this, publishing it, posting it? What's the point of this? And as you start thinking about that, you'll start noticing which ones of these activities are getting you the results that you want versus the ones that are just secondary or maybe basically irrelevant. So along the way to being noticed, one of the best activities you can do is to position yourself as an expert. As I said, being unique is very difficult, if not impossible. Being the expert is also very challenging, but being an expert is not as challenging. How do we become an expert? Well, you probably already have a lot of knowledge in a particular area. Could be your area of professional discipline or endeavor, could be your academic area. It simply could be the area of life that you've been practicing in by simply living your life. You know something, in fact, you know a lot of something about an area. That's what you focus on to become an expert in that, especially if it's related to, or if you can connect it to your work. So even if you were, let's say, an expert in underwater basket weaving, and that's not your career, how can you connect the two? How can you use your perspectives? Creating, for example, a blog of the underwater basket weaver's perspective on accounting or something like that. Maybe I'm stretching it a little bit, but I want to say that there's got to be a way for you to connect to how you can be an expert publicly. And that's what we want to reach. You can write posts with authoritative content from your perspective. There's one thing that we all know for sure that you are an expert at, and that is you. So writing about your life experiences and your point of view can definitely be written with authority. And you can share your expertise via all kinds of means, like social media posts. You can publish on your LinkedIn, your Facebook, your Twitter. Even if you don't create, I'll still give you some techniques or methodologies that'll help you become more visible. But I repeat, you want to be concise, crisp, and compelling. Concise, crisp, and compelling are the 3 C's that I want you to always keep in mind. Why? Because frankly, it doesn't matter who said it first. What matters is who is louder and more consistent. People really only remember about 30% of what they hear. In fact, some experts say that people remember only 5% of what they hear only once, and that it takes them 5 times to really remember something. So if you're trying to get the message out about you being an expert in a particular area, less is more. Talk less, be repeatable, be retweetable, be quotable, turn up the energy and turn up the volume consistently. In other words, say the same things loudly over and over and over until people get the message that that's what you're about. And
so
that's
Shally, does that mean, because we're using a lot of different social media platforms, that maybe it's the same message, but it's a picture form as opposed to a blog form, as opposed to, I don't even know, quote or that kind of thing?
The channel doesn't really matter as much as the message. So you're right, it's the same message. It just takes different shapes, different forms. On Twitter, it might be a tweet or an image. On Instagram, definitely better be an image. On LinkedIn, it might be a little bit more than an image. You can use images, but a paragraph or a story and so on. We'll talk a little bit about this, but yes, the message is the same. The vehicle, the channel, the tools that you use can change, and they will change, but you have to be consistent with the message that you're trying to communicate. What is your expertise? What is your knowledge? What do you want to be known for? Good question. Thanks for asking that. So, crisp, compelling, and concise. Let's talk about crisp. This is an exercise on helping you be crisp about you, the brand you. Ask yourself these 5 questions. The first one, which is your mission, this is why you exist. And I don't mean this from an existentiary kind of existentialism point of view, but professionally, in your professional endeavor, why do you exist? The second one is your vision. What is it that you promise? So I exist to connect people with great jobs, great talent with great opportunity. What is my promise? My promise is that I will make the right connections for people so that when I'm presenting them with an opportunity, it is an opportunity that is of interest to them. And when I'm presenting them to an employer, that employer is interested in them. That's my promise. Now, that's a little bit lengthy, but I wanted to explain it a little bit so you get the idea. Why do you exist? What is your essence, your mission professionally? And your vision is, what is it that you promise that you will do in order to fulfill that mission? The third step are your brand attributes. This is what you want people to think about when they hear or see or read about you. These are the attributes that you want people to remember. So when they come across your whatever, blog post, tweet, LinkedIn profile, what are the key things that they should carry with them as they move on in the rest of their online travels?
So Shally, let me ask you, if you're a recruiter, you are a recruiter, and you have however many, let's say 5 job recs to fill, do you look for those that have applied for the job, or are you scrolling and trolling through different social media platforms to see who has posted and shared their mission, values, brand, blah, blah, blah?
Well, my job is to fill the job as a recruiter. So I'm going to use every device that I have access to. I would like for the right people to apply for my jobs and for there to be enough applicants that I don't have to do anything else. At some point, we all have our lazy bones, right? So if people basically walk in the door, that makes my job pretty easy. If they apply and it's the right type of people for the right job for the right people for that job, then I don't have to look elsewhere. But the reality is that there's a lot more jobs right now than there are people to fill them in many sectors, perhaps not all. So I'm not getting enough applicants, or even any in some cases, for the jobs, which means I have to go out and find them. And what I'm going to go out and look for are those key essential things that I need, which hopefully would align with your mission and your vision.
Gotcha.
If I'm looking for an underwater basket weaver, I'm going to be looking for keywords that are related to that. And when I see lots of content and lots of the same message across multiple social media pointing to Christine being the expert underwater basket weaver in the New Jersey area, I'm going to reach out to you first. Okay.
All right. So this is pretty important. I mean, if you're not getting enough applicants, even though you're kind of rushing off and saying, hey, I'm not qualified or whatever, you might still be qualified, but you want to exemplify that mission and vision on different platforms so that a recruiter can find you, because you might be that perfect fit.
That's right. Let them reach out to you because your mission and your vision are part of what they're looking for. May not be the whole picture. You might not meet all the requirements, but we hire people all the time that don't meet all of the requirements. We hire people that meet the key requirements, the primary requirements, and then some of the others we have to be a little bit flexible with, because not everybody is going to know everything that we need them to know, right? A lot of the information that's on a job description or a job posting comes from someone previously having done that job. In other words, they learned it on the job. So we don't expect that everything in the wish list is going to be matched.
Okay. Thank you.
Besides your brand attributes, you're welcome. Besides your brand attributes, these are what you want people to think about when they come across your profile. You have your brand positioning. This is what you want to be known for. Attributes are what you want them to recognize about you right now. Positioning is the message that you want them to buy into. That's the change that you want to see. So you might have your attributes already, and you want people to recognize those attributes, but you don't necessarily have a brand where you're positioning yourself as this expert in this field, in this geography, or in this industry. That's the positioning. So you've got your mission is why you exist. Your vision is what you promise. Your attributes is what you want people to remember about you. And your brand positioning is what you aspire for them to see in you. Finally, all of these four come together in what's called thought leadership. Thought leadership is a big word for basically knowing what you're talking about. If you're clear and consistent and your message and your content supports that clear and consistent message, you're a thought leader. You don't have to be a thought leader in something that you don't know anything about. You can be a thought leader in something you know a lot about, whether that's the beach or seashells, it doesn't matter. Your thought leadership is you having original ideas and perspectives about what you want to be known for, so that when people see it, they remember who you are and what you promised. That is being crisp. How do we become compelling?
I'm sorry, from our chat box.
No problem. We'll go back.
Do you use the ATS system?
Well, every recruiter does, because if there is one, now believe me, some companies still don't have an ATS system. It's rare, but it happens. If there is an ATS system, it is, I don't want to say absolutely required, but it is certainly a way to stay above the compliance requirements. No system, no technology can be compliant. It takes people, it takes humans to be compliant. But an ATS, or the applicant tracking system, makes it possible for me to be compliant in a much more, in a much easier way, rather than, let me paint a picture of what it used to be when I started in the industry. In order for me to have compliance, in order for me to be compliant, I had to keep what's called an applicant flow log, which is basically, back then, a clipboard with a landscape piece of paper with the name of the candidate and then columns for the different things that I had to track. And I had to fill that out manually and file that. And I had to have that be available whenever there was an audit. So imagine doing that with hundreds of thousands of applicants today. It's practically impossible. So recruiters really do need to use the applicant tracking system. However, there are jobs that get posted that don't have any applicants. So even though I'm using the applicant tracking system, I go in there and I look at that particular requisition or opening and I see no applicants. I'm going to have to go somewhere else and bring people in.
So let me ask you another question from the chat box. Maybe you're getting to this, I'm not really sure, but when we say the mission and the values and the brand and all that good stuff, when we have somebody switching a career and maybe they're going from nursing to dog grooming, how do they brand themselves so you know that they are an expert in that field, and that's what they care about at this point, even though their background, history, resume might not read that way? How do you put that out there to?
Well, first of all, yeah, I think I understand your question. First of all, you can't fake experience, right? So if you don't have experience in an area where experience is required, then that's not going to be a fit. But there are plenty of ways to get into a new market and switch career without having the necessary required experience, because you would be able to obtain it. That may mean you have to take a step back professionally. You may not make as much as a dog groomer as you did when you were a nurse, but you don't want to be a nurse anymore. So you're done with that and you have no choice but to go in this other direction. Don't expect to make a upward move in income if you're switching careers. It's possible, but that's not what your target is. First, you have to get there. Now, there are attributes that made you a good nurse whatever those attributes were are still transferable because these are still your attributes. Is it your work ethic? Is it your attention to detail? What are your competencies that helped to make you a great nurse, and translate those very same ones to this new field? As far as the experience, well, you have to earn the experience. Perhaps you can intern or take a lower paying job or do some volunteering so that you have that experience on your resume. I'm not really, going to be able to give you the answer to how do you get experience without experience. It's the catch-22 question, but there are ways that you can build your resume up, even if you kind of have to start from scratch. However, the things that made you a really good professional still make you a really good professional, and they carry forward. So your content about your passion about dog grooming, if that's your new endeavor, will come across. Your competence and your passion and that you care about it. So crisp, compelling, concise messaging about why you left nursing and became a dog groomer, why you like dog grooming. What is it about dog grooming that you like? What makes you a good dog groomer? What makes other people good dog groomers? You can write articles, you can create, and the other thing I'll talk about is curate, which is a little bit different when you're not the one creating the content. You can still leverage content that exists. All of it around dog grooming, if that's the area that you want to go in. What I'm saying is that if you want to become a dog groomer, it doesn't matter that you were or were not a dog groomer. You shouldn't be blogging about underwater basket weaving. You should be blogging about dog grooming.
Thank you.
That's the focus. Crisp, concise, compelling, repetitive, all the channels that you can use until you find the ones that work. Now let's talk about how you become compelling, because crispness is just one part of it. Being compelling is also important. The easiest way to get to a compelling statement is to put a problem and a solution together. In other words, state the problem, state the solution, and you are providing the result, the outcome. If you can show the outcome. So what is the problem? Well, your dog is a matted mess of hair. What is the solution? You provide expert dog grooming services, maybe at home at a fraction of the price that is provided at the fancy salons, where the results are perhaps not even as good, and yet they charge a lot more. So as a result, you have, before and after, right? Messy dog, matted hair, pretty looking dog, etc. Apply that to whatever your industry is. So you talk about the problem, you state the problem clearly and repetitively, frequently, and you state the solution, and the solution involves you. The result is you solve the problem. Now, on the way to get there, think about how you can turn the world of me. In other words, if you think about talking about what you do, I'm a dog groomer, I groom dogs, I shampoo, I walk them, I trim their nails. Turn the me into we, and then into you. It's very difficult to turn me into you, but it's easier if we transition from me into we into you. Let me explain. I'm a dog groomer. We all have messy pets. We don't have time to groom our dogs because we all have busy lives. You have a messy pet and a busy life. I can solve that problem that you have. Turn the me into we into you. If you just talk about me, I'm a dog groomer, I'm the best dog groomer, look at me, I'm on social media, I'm a dog groomer, nobody's going to care, because nobody cares about you unless you have something that solves their problem. So turn the me into what is the universal problem of all people that are in this field that are, solving these problems, and how are you contributing to that? What is the collective? Think about someone that's being interviewed on television. When an athlete is interviewed after a sporting event, the ones that we like to listen to are the athletes that actually tell us what really happened on the field or in the game, and they talk about their team. The ones we don't want to listen to are the ones that make it all about themselves. I was the greatest. I scored the goal. I made the basket. I made the shot. But when they talk about we together as a team and how you, the audience, helped us get here, that is compelling. Hearing somebody talk about themselves, that is compelling. So a little bit of extra assistance in helping you get there. You see a Venn diagram here, these converging circles. Think about these three statements. First, what do you want to say? What is it you want to talk about relevant to your field, your industry, your expertise? What do you want to talk about? What do you want to say? This should be easy because it's what you're thinking about. Then think about what they want to talk about. This is the you, the audience, the others, right? So you want to talk about dogs or cats, whatever your pet grooming is. Maybe you're an expert bird groomer. What do you want to talk about? Then next, think about what do they want to talk about? What is their perspective, their problem? Maybe you like dogs, but maybe for them, it's about just not having the time. Of course, they like dogs, they have one, but they don't have the time. So what is their issue? And then the third is what is best for your business? So what do you want to say? What do they want to talk about? And what is good for your business? If you can find a point of intersection between those three, that's where the conversation begins. That's compelling. If what you want to say is something they want to talk about and it's good for your business, it's a win-win. Or as some people might say, it's a no-brainer.
You mentioned that what is best for your business, and a lot of us are not business owners, but we are in the business of the business of
your job, right? Your business is your job.
Of me. So what is the best for you as someone that is a job seeker?
Right. What is that? What is it that you want the outcome to be? Mm-hmm. Right. What's best for your business would be interviews or job offers, whatever that is. Right. So it's important that you know what you want to say, but it's also important that you say something they want to talk about and that it has a common objective that furthers your goal. Otherwise, whatever you want to say and whatever they want to talk about is going to end up nowhere and you won't get a job. So putting those three together is really the important part. Now let's talk about growing your visibility. So you're becoming an expert, you're talking about what you want to talk about and they want to listen. You've turned me into we, into you. Now it's time to go out there and get your name out. For a few dollars, you can buy your own name on GoDaddy or any one of 100,000 different places where you can buy domains. I've got mine, literally shally.me. You can buy that and then that can become your place where you go. In fact, I put in the chat a link to my place here, which is right here. This is my essentially my landing page on my domain. And it's just a page about me. It doesn't matter where I work, whether I have a job or not. This page is always going to be mine because I own it. And in here, it talks a little bit about what I am, what I do, what I want to do, and it's got links to contacting me and all these other places. Something like this is very simple to create. You don't even need to know HTML or anything. It's almost as easy as writing in a Word document.
It is very easy,
and,
guys.
Yeah, and now you have a landing page.
Yeah.
The next thing you can do is claim your name. So my name is Shally, and you would think that that's a pretty unique name, but you'd be surprised how many other Shallys there are. So one of the things that I did earlier is I went and I created a Shally account in all of the different social media so that nobody else could become Shally on Twitter, Shally on Facebook, etc. It might be a little bit too late for a name like Steve, but what if you have a first and last name or some other combination that you want to claim so that when people start Googling information, they start seeing the same over and over again. The one that I showed you now is Carrd, CARRD.com, but you might be familiar with About Me. There's a number of others. Now let's talk about the content, because content creation, let's face it, your job, your expertise may not be to be a writer. So writing thought leadership and articles and blog posts may not actually be in your nature. That's okay. You don't have to be an author, a professional author, in order to create content. Here's a few painless hacks that you can use to create some simple content. You can repurpose content. You can create an article that has multiple angles and has a part 2, part 3, part 4, part 5, and basically has a little life of its own. You can reuse historical content. You can find content from the past and have an opinion or add to it and republish it repurposefully. You can also curate content, which is curating means finding content that's already out there and reposting it. As long as you are giving credit to the person that originally wrote it and linking back to them, most people don't object to that. And you can also create user-generated content. In other words, if you have a blog maybe the articles aren't yours, but maybe you're asking other people for their opinion and thoughts on something. They're the ones that are creating the content. So all you have to do is come up with a couple of good questions, and then the content is basically created by them. How do we
It's a
write
really
content?
important point that you just made, Shally, because so many people that I've encountered have a huge problem with creating content. I don't know where to start. I don't know where to begin. And how do I do that? And you just made a lot of different bullets that were very easy to get started and get comfortable before you actually think about expanding. It's a way for you to kind of dip your toe into the water without making a blog, so to speak.
Yeah, you don't need to write a big fancy article that's going to become front page news.
Yeah.
As long as you have the end in mind. What's the end in mind? The end is, what do you want to be known for? You're trying to get exposure for your job so that people recognize your expertise in this field. So what's the end that you have in mind? You want people to find this article and get the fact that you're knowledgeable in this area. You want them to get that you are an expert in this field. Then you want to focus on your most important audience. Your most important audience would be perhaps a hiring manager. So don't think about people who do the job, but people who hire people who do the job and write for them. Ignore everybody else. The content that you write, if you do create your own content, will be useful if you're reaching that decision maker. And if anybody else likes it, that's great, but that's not who you're writing for.
How do you do that? Do you tag them? Like, I'm not really sure.
You write for them in the perspective of what you think they want to hear. So we go back to the Venn diagram. What do they want to talk about?
All right.
Okay. So what do you want to say with regard to what? So what if you're looking for a job as a bookkeeper? Well, the person who might hire you is someone who perhaps runs a small business and doesn't really know a whole lot about accounting. Well, what if you start creating very basic articles on, what is a debit, what is a credit, how to balance your books, how to balance your accounting for small businesses. And it doesn't matter if it's original content. You can just write about what you know. Maybe you went to business school, maybe you took an accounting class, write about that. People who are in your area that are looking for bookkeepers will find that, because they'll go out there to Google or whatever and say, how do I balance my books? And if they're in your area, Google will serve up your article because your article has a lot of trust since you're also local and you're writing about how to balance your books. So focus on that audience and focus on the most important information. Not all the ancillary stuff, not everything that looks pretty that's around it, but what is core to the essence of your job. As a bookkeeper, it's keeping the books. So don't talk about taxes or other things that are outside of that. The next thing is, when you're writing an article, one of the hardest things, as you said, is to get started. So work from the top down. The top is the conclusion. What is the end result? The conclusion is how you begin writing the article. That's what I mean by writing from the top down. You begin with the conclusion, and then you start writing from the top down, so that when you're done writing, at the end of your writing, you've arrived at that conclusion that you decided was the conclusion you wanted to make. So how do you balance your books? What's the conclusion? Summarize that in a sentence, and then write basically from the top down to get to that conclusion. What are the key questions? That's supposed to say the, not hey, number one there. What are the key questions that you would ask? Then write the headlines for your 2 or 3 paragraphs. A headline doesn't have to be a subheading. It could just be the intro to a paragraph. Then you fill in the blanks. Then you edit it with an eye for what does the hiring manager want to read. And you can then take that same article and write it 10 different ways, repurpose it and stockpile it so you can reuse it multiple different ways. You can balance your book 10 different ways. So the first article is 10 different ways to balance your books. Number one way, then number two way. That one article that you wrote on 10 different ways to balance your books is now 10 different articles. And that becomes a series that you can repurpose.
I have seen that in action, Shally, and it's really wonderful because they're bite-sized pieces of information.
You don't easier to write,
isn't it? Long, gigantic article, and you get the gist of it. Absolutely.
A few pointers on that. Simplicity is the mother of communication. Keep it simple, keep it short, keep it concise, and it'll be a lot easier to write. It'll also be a lot easier to read, and it'll get a lot more traffic. When you're writing, answer these three questions: what, why, and so what. Forget about what you learned in school about journalism, who, what, when, where, how, why, and all that stuff. That's great for when you're writing for the news. But for this type of content, what's important is what's this about? What's the point? Why, which is basically, why is this important? Or more importantly, why is this important to you? Or more importantly, why should you care? You're the reader, right? So what is this about? Why? And so what is basically, what are you going to do now? What is it about? Balancing your books. Why? Because you don't know how to do it right. So what? You should hire me. That's it. Then you want to say it when they're listening. Here's a mistake that a lot of people make when it comes to content, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, whatever, if it's just a like or a follow or whatever. If you're doing it when it's convenient for you and it happens to be 3 a.m. because you're having a sleepless night, nobody else is going to be up or listening unless you work the third shift, and that's when people are working. But make sure that what you're doing is being published or visible when the people who are your target audience are actually paying attention. The fourth is go where they are. You might be an avid Instagram user, but your hiring managers are not on Instagram. They're on Pinterest. Well, you're going to have to create content for both. Or at the very least, start focusing on the content where they want it, because that's where they are. So the first step to that is find out where they are. Where do your hiring managers hang out? Do some search and research on that, and then go there. Don't expect them to come to you. Let me put it this way. If hiring managers that you want to target are already on a particular Facebook group, join that group. Don't create another group and expect that they're going to leave that group to come to yours. Join the group that they're already in. People care about people, so talk about you, talk about people, don't talk about things, don't talk about other stuff. People care about people. Make it about yourself, make it about them. Remember, turn you into we into us. And then make it easy to share. So here's the other trick. If what you're publishing has a headline that's difficult to share, people won't share it. So one of the best ways to do it is just keep your headlines fairly brief, so there's room for someone to add a comment to the beginning or to the end if they're reposting it. And also to have on wherever you go, the ability to share the content. There's lots of different tools for that. In fact, some of them are built into WordPress or blog tools, but you can just get an app like Share This or something like that, which installs some HTML code and makes a button. You've probably seen it on the article where it says, share this, and it's got like email, Facebook, Google, LinkedIn, or whatever. I actually have it at the bottom of the slides down here. That's exactly what that is. Let's talk a little bit about what repeatable and quotable is. As I said, you got to leave a little bit of room for others. Otherwise, they won't be able to comment. You also want to make sure that your content is frequent enough so that it stays on top of feeds, but not too frequent where it's basically overwhelming or spam. That's going to mean different things in different environments. On LinkedIn, an article once every couple of days or once a week is enough. On Twitter, more than a few times a day is a little bit better. Once a week on Twitter is not enough. So it just really depends on the audience. You also want to have a little bit of balance. Don't always post links to other stuff. Don't always post the same kind of content. Have some posts with videos, some with photos, some with questions. Also post answers to other people's questions or post questions asking for other people's opinion. Tagging is a good technique. On LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter, you can use tags, but don't overuse them. 2 or 3 tags is good. Once you go more than that, it looks like you're trying too much and people will sort of tune it out. And make sure that the tags are organic and relate to what you're doing. So dog grooming, then you can use the tag dog grooming, but don't have dog grooming, dogs, pets, grooming services. It's too much. So pick a few that work. You can actually check which tags are already being used on a couple of the websites that you see here. And then mentioning, you can mention people on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook as well. So if you want to mention the hiring manager or someone prominent in that field, that will attract their attention. They may reshare it, and that will attract more attention to your content because someone that's prominent has reshared your content. And finally, a word about quoting. Quoting others is not accepted, it's expected. So don't feel like you're stealing content when you're quoting someone else. You're helping that person get the word out on their content as well, as long as you're linking back to them or giving them credit. In other words, it's not just okay to quote others and reuse their content. It's actually a good idea. It helps both of you. You can submit articles and answers to a bunch of different places like Quora and eHow, even on LinkedIn. People answer questions and you can answer questions, again, in your area of expertise. Answer bookkeeping questions. The more questions you answer, the more traffic you get, the more credibility you have, especially if you focus it on a particular industry or geography or practice, a particular type of bookkeeping like small business or, and so on, or a particular type of grooming and so on. Wrapping up this content, some writing tips. As you're writing, envision that there's somebody reading this, one person. Make them up if you want, but make up this person that's reading your article and write to that person. If you can connect with that imaginary reader, then you'll connect with others. But if you try to write for everyone, that's a lot harder to do and probably a lot less successful. You'll have less success writing for a wider audience than you will if you envision a particular reader and almost write as if you were writing a letter to them. It makes it easier. You can limit your paragraphs to 2 or 3 sentences, break them up with some blank lines, and then go back and delete everything you can absolutely can. Reread your article a couple of times or your blog post a couple of times and try to delete as many words as you can.
I've seen that example recommendation for resumes as well, to delete extra words, adjectives, and pronouns and that kind of thing. Do you recommend doing that as well?
Yeah, absolutely, because you want the content to be exactly about what you want it to be about. And we can all sort of fall into the trap of explaining things a little bit too much. In the process of getting to our article on how to balance your books, all of a sudden we end up talking about what kind of software we use. And we have 2 paragraphs about that. And that's not really relevant to this article, is it? So
does that
delete
include
as much as you can.
numbers and whatnot, or just the fact that you did something, or has resume style changed because of people skimming and not having enough time?
I don't know about resume style, but certainly LinkedIn has had an impact in that what's considered a resume these days is a lot more bullet pointed than it used to be.
Okay.
And there's less content on it than there used to be.
Okay.
So that if that's the style, then yes, then it has changed.
Thank you.
But what hasn't changed is no matter what, resume, LinkedIn, blog post, you got to have a call to action. And that call to action needs to be clear. You might have the most perfect resume, but if it doesn't say on there, call me or email me, then nobody's going to do it. Think about it this way. If you don't ask them to do anything, that's exactly what they'll do. You didn't ask them to do anything. They're not going to do anything. If your post, your article, your resume says, call me for this or contact me for this or subscribe or whatever, then you're asking for that. And then you can expect to get results. Headlines is another one that people have a lot of trouble with because it's kind of, you want to make a headline catchy, and sometimes it's the only chance that you have to get someone to click through to read something, especially if it's on a feed like Twitter or LinkedIn, or even Facebook, where you might only see 1 or 2 lines. So the headline is basically almost as important as the first sentence. In fact, the headline and the first sentence can kind of work together. So a few places, check out the thesaurus. There's lots of online thesaurus. In fact, there's a really cool, sort of kind of like a thesaurus called Word Hippo. Literally the way it sounds, Word Hippo, where you can put in a couple of words and it helps you find other ways to say those same words. So it's not as much a thesaurus about like, what are the other words that mean the same thing as this word, but more like phrases. It has a thesaurus too, but it also helps you with these other things. Think of idioms, like putting the cart before the horse. How not to put the cart before the horse with your bookkeeping, right? Similes, like strong as an ox, cute as a button, smart as a fox. These things are universally accepted, and they can draw attention to your article if the other part of your headline is relevant. So how can you create a metaphor or maybe even inject some humor in the form of puns? Puns are a little bit harder to create, but something that can be relevant to what you're talking about that'll make someone smile will also make them click on the article. I'm seeing some chat questions there. We have a bunch of questions in the chat, or did I?
We have a few
Okay.
chat information about LinkedIn messages.
Okay.
Question just came in. Is it a good idea to have a separate persona and a professional social media life, separate Instagram, Twitter, blah, 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 or the same, or what is your recommendation?
That's a challenging one, because here's the challenge. Here's the reason that can be a little scrambled. If your name is the same on your professional profile and on your social profile, how is the reader going to determine which is which? In other words, if you have a professional profile and a social profile, it's not going to be apparent to someone that maybe finds your name or whatever. So if you're going to do something like that, make sure that there's a very clear distinction. For example, you might choose to not use Facebook for anything professional. Well, make sure your content there is not visible to anybody that isn't already part of your network, so that it can't be accidentally found by someone that's maybe finding your professional. So that's where it gets tricky. In other words, I'm not saying don't do it. I'm saying if you're going to do it, make sure that there's a clear distinction and there's a wall around your personal content that doesn't leak out to your professional, because the professional content obviously is the one that you're going to want to market the most and be known for publicly. So keep your private by making sure you're locking down sharing and all that stuff. As far as which social network, you can be private and professional on pretty much all of them, so it doesn't really matter. And more and more people are choosing sides, if you will. So folks are where we all used to have a network connections on Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn and Pinterest and Instagram. More people these days are choosing which one they use on a regular basis, and that's where they hang out the most. So it's really up to your target audience. If your target audience is more frequent Pinterest, then that's really where your focus should be. Professional focus should be. Maybe your personal can be wherever else you want, but your target audience professionally, that's where you want to have the public content.
I agree with that statement, Shally. Hang out where your potential employers are hanging out. Absolutely. Right. When you start to take all the social media platforms and make a professional and a personal for all the social media platforms, time. Oh my gosh, the time that you're taking to post and just even scroll through content is a lot of time, and I don't know if that's the best use of your time when you're still in job search. So you might want to make that decision. Right,
and confusion for them, right? They're like, well, which one? This looks like the same Shally. Is this the same Shally? Yeah. He's got no hair on this one and sunglasses, and it looks like he's on the beach. That can't be the same Shally, right?
One of the questions is, could you clarify where you are posting content? And again,
wherever you want to reach that audience, right? So if you're hiring managers, your audience is hanging out on LinkedIn, then you're creating content there and posting it on your LinkedIn profile. If your audience is on Instagram, or if your audience is on, more avid to like reading articles on the web, then have a blog that is, more of a web presence, right? So it depends on where your audience professionally is, and you're posting there. You can always cross post, meaning you can have the main article be on your blog and then mention it on your LinkedIn and your Facebook, but the main content is where you want people to go to find out about you, get your bio, download a copy of your resume, find out how to contact you, and those kinds of things.
I have seen that as well, and cross-posting is wonderful because it's a click of a button as opposed to putting it all out there.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Now, if you don't want to create content, or just simply don't have the time, or you have writer's block, whatever, the other thing you could do is be a curator. And that is where you go out and you read things about. So if you want to read about bookkeeping, you can harvest the best articles about bookkeeping, take the top 3 articles, put them together, and introduce them in one blog post where you have a little intro that's a sentence about what you think. Then you link to the articles with some excerpts quoting the author, and then you have a conclusion. So all you have to write is the intro sentence and the conclusion sentence, and you're adding to the idea by bringing in the thoughts of other people. This is great because there's this thing called infobesity, obesity of information, way too much information. And if you're helping people digest lots of information, that in of itself is of value. You may not be the one creating the content about bookkeeping, but you're picking the best content. And other people who agree with you that this is the best content will read your blog or your posts instead of going to 10 other places. By gathering them together in one central place, you're doing a service for people that are reading that content, even if you're not the original creator. And these people are still going to go to those other people's pages because you're still linking to them. So it's totally okay to gather articles from others. And you can do this with free software like Clipit and Diggo, Dig, Delicious. Those are bookmarking websites. Or the third line, Scoopit, and Trapit and Bundler. Those are free. The one in the middle is not free. So for the purposes of you don't want to spend any money, don't use the middle point that starts with Curata. The first and third ones are all free. These are ways to gather information from multiple sources. You can gather articles from Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and publish them on your blog, as long as you're crediting the author. And as long as you're always adding value. How do you add value? Whenever you're grabbing stuff from other people's blog posts or articles or LinkedIn, think about how can you contribute to this by saying yes and, or yes, but. These are both very positive ways to contribute to that other person's idea without arguing or disagreeing. You don't want to argue and disagree because you don't want to create tension or contention. You simply want to inform your audience so they see you as an expert. So someone else wrote a great article about bookkeeping. You grab the article, quote it, and say, I read this great article. Yes, I agree. And also, I'm going to add this. Or yes, I agree, but also I'm going to add this. And then you copy and paste, give credit, backlink, which means link to the original article so that people can find it. If you don't do that, then you might have some authors that might come after you and say, hey, you stole my content. Even if you're naming them, you still have to link back to them. So that's the key there. I want to switch to finding people. So we've talked all about how you can be found. Let's now take the initiative and find them. What you see here are a few examples you can copy and paste of ways you can search Google to find organizations that are hiring. For example, the first one is expands operations, facilities, or campus. Let me show you how this works. By simply going to a Google search, and we're going to see, you see expands operations, facilities, and campus. We're going to write that in or copy and paste it. Now, you don't probably know what the pipe is, but basically this is a shortcut on Google that means or. So what I'm saying here is expands operations or expands facilities or expands campus all in one search. And then you, of course, need to add your particular area of expertise, whatever your professional area is that you're looking for. Why? Because these are going to find you articles of organizations or companies or campuses that are growing. And of course, they're probably going to be hiring. And these articles come out long before the job postings come out. They're going to expand their operations first, then they're going to advertise the jobs are open. So you then add, say, for example, an industry like, I don't know, let's say dog grooming, just kind of keeping to the idea. Dog grooming services that might be expanding, press releases about dog grooming organizations and so on. Then you can add something local, like the name of a town or city or region where you live. So you can use this combination of expands operations, facilities, and campus with just about any combination of industry and location. So let's say Boston, and we'll do government contractor. So a government contractor is expanding operations in Boston. There's a whole bunch of others here. Here's grows or growing, slightly different, but this is grows or growing or expands their operations, facilities, or campus, combination of the above, and words like grows or growing. This one is particularly, the third one is particularly useful for organizations that win big deals, like they win a bid, for example, for construction, and so on. So receives or wins some sort of deal or contract. Again, we'll do that. Receives. So you see that receives or wins. And then we have deal or contract and Boston. This company wins a $567 million contract to supply rail cars. Wins a project for missile defense, Business Journal, Constitution, and so on. So these are articles and press releases, especially if you look at the dates, these are a little bit older. What you can do is you can actually change the date with tools here where the results can come in from the past week or month to keep them really fresh. So you're not getting stuff from 2015, which won't be as relevant. So these are other combinations here. One of my favorite is top companies or fastest growing, just as a keyword search. So let's say fastest growing. Boston 2021 and construction or whatever industry. Companies that are quickly growing in construction. Here's a website dedicated to that. This looks like it's got a bunch of cities, but you can go and check out and see which ones are in your city.
So using this Google search, the way you have presented it is a great research tool. And then you take it a step further to find out who would be hiring or who's in charge, CEO company-wise or that kind of thing, and reach out to them.
Reach out to those individuals. So first you find the companies that are hiring.
Mm-hmm.
Then you can go to social media, LinkedIn or wherever, and find the people at those companies that would be the ones that would potentially invite you in for an interview or that might make connections for you and so on.
So basically, this is all, as we've stated before in the beginning, ways that you can job search without applying online.
Exactly. These are going to be early on companies that are not quite advertising their openings yet, especially where they're receiving funding. One of the top reasons companies receive funding from venture capital or incubators is to hire staff, especially after Series A or what's called initial seed investment. So Series B, Series C funding is almost always money for hiring. So I'll use that as an example. We'll do Series B funding. Helps if you can type. Boston 2021. And Series B, as I said, or Series C, is usually because they're going to need to hire a bunch of people. Cardless raised $40 million in Series B funding. That comes out July 14th. This company now has $40 million bucks. Some of that's going to be directed towards hiring people. You want to go to that company and start applying for jobs or finding people at that company before they even post the jobs. Profit increased is another one, similar to Series B. Series B and Series C is going to apply more towards startups or mid-sized companies that are growing, whereas profit increase would apply more towards larger companies that are, gaining ground in a competitive industry or something like that. But all of these are different techniques that you can use in combination with industry keywords. A couple of other places. Here, this link is a link that takes you to a list of fully funded startups. So this is a list of startups that have received money recently. So essentially the venture firms and Series B that I just told you, except you can go in here and just do a search by location, right? If you're in Chicago or Jersey City, for example, and hit search, it'll show you all of these companies that have received money and may now be hiring. Looks like nothing, but it might be Jersey City is not the location. Depends on where you are. Now, you can also do the same thing with some of these others. There's a website called Levels that has a list of companies that are hiring, and it's a always updated list. So you can see here, it's taking a second to load, but when you click on it, you'll be able to filter and sort. You can see it's a huge list. That's why it took a while to load. It's actually still loading, but you can filter because this is going to be a lot, right? And all kinds of different companies that are hiring. Another one is stillhiring.io. This is a list that's kept by another company similar to what we talked about, where they're posting articles about organizations that are continuing to hire through the pandemic. And then Coda has a list of companies as well. So these are essentially just curated lists of companies that are continuing to grow and hire. And you can just search through the locations. These are going to be all over. There's New York. There's so most of the time with these lists, you can filter. So these are companies that
you can pretty much narrow down where you're looking before you actually do that research and find out that job is, I don't know, in New Mexico or if you're, Germany or something like that, and you're not going to relocate.
Exactly. The idea, of course, is to get in early to these, right? So you want to focus in on something where you can, make inroads locally with people that you might know or that you can get connections to. Even tells you what kind of jobs they're hiring for. Here's sales, HR.
I've seen reports that 65% on the low end get a job, land a new position based on doing this research and applying in the hidden job market. And I've seen on the top of that scale, 85%. Whereas applying online has been very consistent among lots of different reports and articles that 2% of people land a job from applying online. So It's better off to do something like this, where you're curating content and you're on those social media platforms, again, limiting your time, but knowing you so you know where you're going and the content you're putting out. So it comes back to you tenfold.
And the simple explanation for that is this: if a job has been posted for a while, the role that the marketing organization plays is to drive traffic. So a job is posted on LinkedIn. LinkedIn's job, the reason people buy the service, the reason employers pay LinkedIn, is because they expect LinkedIn to promote the job and drive traffic. Which means that if the job's been out there for more than a couple of days, there's been lots of traffic, which likewise means there's been lots of applicants. And as you go in there, you'll see, at least LinkedIn does the courtesy of telling you how many people have applied for the job, but in a lot of other places you won't know. If 600 people have applied for the job, your chances of standing out amongst 600 people are a lot lower. Doesn't really matter that it's not because of you, it's because there's just a lot of noise. So that's the reason for that, is when there's a position that's been out for a while and the company has paid for traffic, there has been results and there's been traffic. Unfortunately, a lot of that traffic may even be people that are not qualified. So 600 people have applied and 590 of them are completely unqualified. Only 10 of them are qualified. But that recruiter that's looking through those 600 people isn't going to be able to tell those 10 apart from the other 600 or 590 very easily. So even though you're one of 10 that are qualified, you're still one of 600 that applied. That's the reason. But when you get in early, or when you are inside of the organization through introductions and the job hasn't been posted yet, you're one of one. You're one of a very small handful of people that are being considered for that job. So your chances are much higher.
Is there a way for you as a job seeker to, I know I'm interrupting you. You have a lot of slides left and lots to tell us, and everyone is very appreciative of all the information that you're giving. Some of our audience members are concerned about ageism, and they like to know, is there a way to know the company as far as, are they being proactive or reactive with ageism, and how to not even pursue it because I'm not going to bother because that's their feeling, or should they go for it, or what? Is there a way to know that?
Well, I would encourage you to research the company. I mean, an easy way to research the company is to go to LinkedIn and type in the company name and look through the profiles of people that are there. that'll tell you something about the kind of people that are there. But don't dismiss the fact that a company may have started out as a startup with lots of young people, because young people are frequently attracted to startups. And now they're growing up, and now they're hiring people of all ages. So just because the company is currently comprised of younger talent, that doesn't necessarily mean that they aren't hiring across all age groups. So do the research, but at the same time, I wouldn't not apply. I would go ahead and apply. However, I would use these techniques and apply for the jobs that are fresh and new and get introduced to the company, because then they're not looking at your resume. They're looking at you as an individual who's a quote unquote expert in the field, and your resume comes later. Once they've already met you and talked to you, that's when they see your resume. So
basically somebody that's doing that first part of promoting and commenting and sharing and reposting and
finding the hiring
social media
companies,
platforms, and you're
Yep.
not getting those results, make sure you're also taking into account all the information on Google Alerts that you had shared with us to take it a step further to get noticed.
Yes, and be proactive about reaching out and following up, because that's how you're going to get past that ageism. Once they take a look at your profile and they have had a conversation with you, the ageism tends to, go out the window, because now they know they have a talented individual. Part of the reason that ageism is an unconscious bias is because recruiters instinctively think price, they think cost. So if, for example, if I have a job opening that pays $40,000 a year and you've been in the business for 15 years, your salary might be 80,000. There's no way I'm going to be able to afford you. So a lot of times what recruiters think instinctively is, this is kind of an entry-level job. If I reach out to this person, they're probably making a lot more. Now it's an unconscious bias. They shouldn't be doing that. But the reality is that the chances are pretty good that you are actually making a lot more than $40,000 a year, maybe even double that. They just don't know that you may be willing to take a step down, or they don't know what your situation is. So the thing is, they may be overlooking you because of cost, not because of age. And that may not be the case with you. You may not be that expensive compared to what they're looking for. So that's what happens is, after you've had that conversation and you've talked to them about your compensation expectations, which happen to be in line with the job, now they're not so worried about age. That's one of the reasons. Another reason is if they're looking for a position to fill where there's what they call a long runway. In other words, this is a job that's going to have a lot of growth, and they're expecting to bring someone in and train them. When they look at people that have had a lot more experience, they automatically, again, it's a bias and it's not correct, but it is a bias. They think this is someone who may not be open to learning new things. They've kind of done it this way and they're set in that way. And we're looking for someone that we're going to teach to do new. Again, once they have a conversation with you and they see that you're flexible and open and learn, and you demonstrate that you've learned, by, then that objection goes away. So sometimes these objections of ageism that are unconscious bias just automatically go away because you've addressed them in that initial conversation. When they see your resume,
or is it a posting,
an email,
or is it a cover letter?
Any of that, right? Any sort of outreach. But the problem is, they look at your resume, and if that's all they have, your resume and an application, that's where the unconscious bias kicks in, because they have no other information outside of your years of experience, which may demonstrate a highly seasoned professional, right? I mean, I'm 50, so I've been, believe it or not, I've been dealing with ageism for quite some time now. In my profession, recruiters tend to be 20. So when they're looking to hire a recruiter, they're looking for someone that's 20 to 25 years old. They're not looking for somebody that's 50. So, but if I have a conversation with them and they realize that I bring value and experience, that sort of goes out the window.
You're
Especially
if I say, choir, Shally, you're speaking to the choir.
Exactly. Yeah. Conversations that I've actually had as a candidate with hiring managers have been around that, where they say, well, we're really looking for somebody that is an individual contributor, not someone who wants to be a manager. And I've responded to that by saying, that's okay. I've been a manager. I don't want to be a manager again. I'm looking for an individual contributor role. Well, they wouldn't know that by looking at my profile, which has vice president on there.
Right.
So again, the conversation, the cover letter, the blog post. These are things that are going to help clarify that much more than a simple, vitae that's one page that has a prescribed number of years of experience on it and a graduation date from your university, which doesn't really say anything about anything other than you have a degree. That's why a lot of times people are advised to put that you have a degree, but not the date you received it.
So the best way to have that conversation so that you can kind of get your foot in the door and state all of that and address the whole ageism salary thing is to do social media platforms, do the research on Google, find out about the company before you even strike up that conversation so you know how to address those points.
And reach out to them directly. Yep. It's very easy. Once you have the name of someone, you've done your research, the company is hiring. I don't know, I'm just gonna, so Bowery, but I'm probably not saying this right. This company here, BoweryFarming.com is hiring in the New York area. Well, I know the name of the company. So now I'm gonna grab this name, go to LinkedIn and Twitter and Facebook and see who I can find that's in my profession at Bowery Farming, and then try to reach out to them, tweet them, send them Facebook requests, etc., and start to have conversations with them to get introduced to the right people. Maybe you don't find the hiring manager, but you find people at Bowery that are on social media, and they'll walk your resume or escort your resume to the recruiter or to the hiring manager. At the very least, you're getting inside information about the company. So when you apply, you're more informed. As a minimum, right?
Yes, thank you.
So you can easily, find contact information for people as well. You can, just Google their name and company, you might find their email address that way. I just saw somebody here. There was a name, I lost it. Anyway, I was going to go basically look up their name, but here we go, Bowery Farming, and we'll do that and use the site : LinkedIn command. So I'm looking through LinkedIn for Bowery Farming. There we go. Look at that. There's the recruiter at Bowery Farming. Well, we know they're hiring because we found them over there. Now we know who the recruiter is. Now we can message the recruiter directly. Doesn't matter that they have a job posting or not. Boom, there you go. Connect with them, send them a message, recommend a blog post, and so on. So sometimes that's all it takes. And you can contact this person directly by doing a simple search.
I think that is one of the most beneficial things that you have shared with us today.
There's even some websites that you can use if you know their location. So we know that they're in New York and they work at Bowery. We can take that information and go to a website like True People Search, for example, and put their name in. I like to copy and paste because I am prone to typos. And so I just, and I'm also a little lazy, but there you go. So you might be able to get their phone number. This is free. It's just asking to check that I'm a human because I guess sometimes it doubts that I am. But I only have to do this once or twice a day, if that. So let's see, truck. No, that's not a truck. That's a bus. Okay, finally, there we go. So I got a cell phone number, possibly no email address, but at least I have a cell phone number.
Wow.
There's a bunch of these on the slides. Even though we didn't get to them, there's some links down here towards the end on different places that you can do that. But don't be afraid to reach out. Hey, I found you on LinkedIn. I noticed that Bowery Farming is hiring. I saw you on this website. I'm very interested. I'm local. I've got a lot of knowledge in bookkeeping or dog grooming or whatever, that we've talked about. I'd like to connect, get to know the company. What can you tell me, et cetera. Reach out and socialize. In this case, honestly,
taking those mutual connections and saying, Hey Guy, I would love to connect with Amelia. I see that you are connected on LinkedIn. Can you make that introduction? Do you go through that person, or do you just try and reach out to them, or both?
I reach out directly first. If I don't get an answer, then I'll ask for an introduction. But you certainly, with LinkedIn, you can ask for an introduction. Now, most recruiters are going to be on LinkedIn, but your hiring managers may not be. So you might find them on Facebook, in which case you might not be able to, get an introduction. Right. But I will attempt to reach out directly first before I inconvenience one of my friends to make an introduction, because I know I'm busy. I know they're busy. The last thing they want to do is stop their day to help me do something that I'm supposed to be doing for myself.
Okay. Good.
I'm not afraid of doing it. I just wouldn't do it first.
Okay.
Yep. How are we doing on time?
We have 15 minutes left.
Okay, good. I wanted to make sure we had a little bit of time.
Somebody had said, I think calling her cell phone is a bit creepy, stalkerish.
No, because she's a recruiter.
Okay. All right. So a recruiter might think differently.
What is the worst that's going to happen? They're going to say, you need to apply for the job. Here's the link.
I don't know.
If that's the worst that'll happen, the recruiters are not going to be offended that you're reaching out. Now, if you reach out pushy and frequently, that's a different story. But then anybody would be irritated at that. If you just reach out once and say, hey, I'd like to find out more about the company, and they point you in the right direction, then you go and do what they said to do. You applied. Maybe a few weeks later, you come back and say, hey, I applied. I haven't heard back. What can you tell me? That's fine.
So basically, if you don't call, you're getting a no. But if you call, you're getting a yes or a no.
Or point in the right direction. Or, yeah, if you don't call, you're definitely not going anywhere with it.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So I wanted to hit on this. I know it was on the screen, but we didn't really quite talk about it, which is Google Alerts. Let's say that you found one of these searches to be very effective for your particular industry or whatever. So, Series B funding in Boston 2021, and let's add, pharmaceutical. Just to make it a little bit more narrow, so it's not as broad. Once you have a search that you like, that works for you, then you can make that search an alert so that new results are emailed to you. To do that, just go to google.com/alerts, just like it sounds. And you're going to paste the keywords that you used in your search. Then you're going to hit the create alert. But before you create the alert, first of all, you do need to have a Gmail account of some kind, which is free. You do want to change some of the settings. Like, for example, you want to get this once a day or once a week. If you choose as it happens, you might get a lot of these, which will flood your inbox. So once a day summaries are good, or once a week summaries. And then you also want to change some of the language and region to United States and English, so you're not getting anything that's from other countries where that's, assuming you're in the United States, that's not going to be very useful for you. And then the last thing is you want to choose all results, not only the best, because only the best filters out things that are based on Google's keywords, which you want the results, not what Google thinks is the best. Keep in mind that when you do this and you create this alert, Google is not going to send you anything that was already on the web when you created that alert. They assume you already saw all that. So what you will get are updates on new content that are coming back as a result of this search, which means you may not get anything for a few days or a few weeks because there's nothing new to share. But when there is, you'll get an email.
So even if you put within 24 hours or whatever, it's from that point within 24 hours, not within the past 24 hours, so to speak.
Right. It's not anything that was already, if it was already indexed by Google, then you won't receive it. So that's a really interesting way to kind of stay up to date with some of these things. These are some slides for sort of alternative employment, flexible jobs, remote jobs. Flexjobs.com is a legitimate remote and virtual working job board, not one of these fly-by-night pyramid scheme, type of work from home jobs. FlexJobs these are verified employers that pay pretty good money to have their virtual jobs posted on here. So one of the things you can do to expand your job search is to include jobs that are remote, that can be done from anywhere. And some of these others are what they call gig worker or gig economy jobs, which means they're part-time or project-based, while not full-time employment, they may be able to help you make ends meet or, make some income until you are able to get a full-time job. So these are gig works here, freelancer, guru.com and hireable.com.
I agree. They're the same ones that are told to us as counselors over and over again. So that's definitely a place to explore.
Yeah. For, to make ends meet for a while, right? I've done this in between jobs. I've done some freelancing. Funny story. One time during the previous recession to this one, which is pretty bad, but not as bad. I was in between jobs and, recently married, having trouble getting ends to meet, if you know what I mean. And I did one of these things. It was a commercial mortgage inspector. The job was they would send me with my digital camera and an instruction on what things to take pictures of. And I would take the pictures so that the inspectors back at the home office could look at the pictures. That prevented these inspectors from the expense of having to travel to the commercial property, because with the picture, they could tell for the most part what they needed. And if they needed anything else, then they would fly out there. But it saved them a lot of time and money, and they would pay me by the visit. So I would go take a bunch of pictures.
Actually, one of the fastest growing jobs.
And it wasn't a job, but I made a lot of money doing that.
Yeah.
So, and there's lots of other things like that. I've also done some, dog sitting. My daughter made about $2,000 during the summer doing dog sitting and dog walking. Hey, it may not be your calling, but I'll take $2,000 over zero, right?
You had mentioned a few ways that we can search on Google and then explore different types of project-based work, flex jobs, that kind of thing. Do you have any recommendations to keep track of our job search so that we don't spend more time on one task or another and don't get caught in that, black hole, so to speak?
I do have another slideshow that I use for that with a couple of recommendations, but I did not include it here. There are a couple of tools that I would use for tracking your job search, so you don't, like you said, get lost or lose track.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Let me see if I got that in here real quick.
Sorry to make you look. You're definitely going above and beyond, but it's very helpful.
No, it wasn't this one. It was the other one. This one. Here we go. This is where it was. There we go, right there. So obviously, of course, you have Excel, and I use Evernote a lot, but the tools that I was mentioning are hunter.co, HUNTR.co, and jibberjobber.com. Both of these are kind of like aggregators where you can track all the applications and everything, so you know where you've applied, what the deadlines might be, and so on. So those are the two that I wanted to highlight for you. Hunter without the E, .co, not com, and jibberjobber.com. LinkedIn, as we've mentioned a few times, is a really powerful search for people, but there may be a few things about LinkedIn that you don't know. For example, when you're inside of LinkedIn, you can use the very powerful filter, and inside of that filter, you can use Boolean syntax, to actually help identify people with particular job titles. So let's go up here to the search box. Oh, there's your post. We'll go up here to the search box, and let's say we're looking for someone who is the manager of accounting. Then you can choose the bubble here. You'll see alumni groups, etc. You can choose people. Once you are in the people search, then it provides you these filters that allow you to focus in on, for example, job title. So here you can say manager or director and accounting. And then for company, you can even list various companies. You can put in, KPMG or Deloitte or PwC. And so the use of these Booleans and an or makes your search a lot more accurate then you could reach out and connect to these people, or you can find their contact information as we talked about before.
Let me ask you this, Shally. I see that it says search with Sales Navigator, 12 additional advanced filters.
That's a different tool.
So if you have a free version of
This is the free
LinkedIn,
version.
can you still do it?
Yeah, this is the free version. That's, if I click here, it'll take me to the other, which I don't have. It's a subscription. They're trying to sell me.
Okay, not a problem. Just
They're always trying to sell me on that. So no, I'm not. This is still your basic account.
okay.
So that's one thing I wanted to share with you. Another one is a really useful way to search is use groups. So for that, let me reset here and we'll do, let's say, bookkeeping. And instead of people, I'm going to use groups. So here's some groups about bookkeeping. Perhaps you can even add a geography there. Bookkeeping in Boston. Don't know why I'm fixated in Boston, but whatever. Greater Boston professional services, etc. Boston cloud-based accounting and bookkeeping solutions. So once you found a group that you're interested in, you can search people that are members of that group. So let's say, for example, I'm going to focus in on one of these larger ones.
So you don't have to be a member of that group. You can still search
certainly
it.
join. You can certainly join, but here's Atlanta Bookkeeping Professionals, for example.
Mhm.
What I'm about to show you is a slightly different technique. Obviously, you can go here and you can join the group and then be a member of the group. That's one way about it, but you can also find people or search members of the group by going externally to search linkedin.com and then using the name of the group in quotation marks.
Oh.
So you're searching through the LinkedIn website for mentions of the Atlanta Bookkeeping Professionals, and then maybe add manager or director there.
This is huge, guys. Write it down. This is a really big deal.
And then you can find, the profiles of people that are, so there's a controller, there's an accounting manager, and these may be the people that might ultimately hire you or make introductions.
Mhm.
So that's the second thing on LinkedIn that I wanted to share with you. The third is the alumni search. So for that, we'll go back to LinkedIn. And this is a way both to expand or grow your network, but also connect with the right kinds of people. We can look for a particular alumni group or educational organization. Let's say that you attended Temple University. So I'm just going to type in Temple University and hit search. But then instead of people or groups, this time I'm going to choose the bubble called schools, which will take me to the Temple University website inside of LinkedIn, or the LinkedIn page for Temple University. This is key because there's also a Temple University company page. That's their page as an employer. This is their page for alumni, which is what I want to show you. Here, you'll see that there's the alumni. And that brings you to a page where you can search alumni. These are people that graduated there. So let's say that you also attended Temple. You can use this as a way to get introduced to other alumni. And I'm going to expand this here and show you. You can focus in on a particular geography. Let's say, oh, Boston. Okay, I want to meet fellow Boston residents that are graduates of Temple, and specifically those that work at, let's say, Boston Children's Hospital. So these are Temple grads in Boston at Boston Children's Hospital. And if you scroll to the right, you'll see here you can find people by their professional area of focus and also by their academic area of focus, or one more scroll to the right, their skills and their distance to you of their first degree or further. If they're already in your first degree, then obviously you don't need this. So I usually focus in on the third degree. And what that does is bring you back down here. These are the 15 people or so that are Temple grads that live in Boston, that work at Boston Children's, that may be able to help make introductions for me. the interesting thing is that when you send a message to Kate, the message that they get is Shally from your alma mater would like to connect, and they don't have the option of rejecting. All they can do is accept or archive. So they either basically archive it or they accept the connection, and now you're connected to them, which means you can send them a message. Or you can see here, even though we're not connected, it still says message. The reason for that is because they're a member of a group to which I already belong. Therefore, I can send them a message for free. So you have two reasons that you want to do this. One, to connect with people and expand your network. And two, to message someone that you might not be able to reach otherwise because you're not connected to them.
Didn't I tell everyone that Shally is the god of searches and sourcing and how to find anything online? I hope that you got some really good tips, because he is just dishing them out. Take lots of notes.
Great. Well, we're pretty much done here. The last one that I wanted to share with you is piggybacking off of LinkedIn, also on the right-hand side here. So let's do a search for accounting manager. It helps if you can type. And so we'll pick out someone here pretty much at random so I can show you. All right, so here's an individual accounting manager. And this is a fourth technique that you can use on LinkedIn to expand your network. And that is, on the right-hand side, you'll see a column that says people also viewed. This is actually not generated by robots. This is generated by other people like us. When we've done searches on LinkedIn and we found Umar, we've also clicked on these other people. So people like us clicked on these people when they were looking for people, which means these are supposedly people that are like this one. And so here you can see some of these folks are outside of your network, but the fact that they appear here means that you can connect with them. So there's a director of financial reporting. That might be an interesting contact for you. So that's one way to expand your search from someone that you found, which is people also viewed. And below that, you see another area, which is called skills and endorsements. And here, let's say that there are endorsements for financial accounting. There's a tiny little number, you may not even be able to see it here. It says 4. What that number represents are the people who have said that they endorse Umar's financial accounting acumen, which means that these are people that Umar actually works with or knows. When you click on that number, you'll see those 4 people come up. And again, these may very well be people that you can connect with that may be outside of your network. So another way to expand your search. And the final one would be down here where you see interests. If you click on see all, you'll see the groups that this person belongs to, which may give you some idea on other groups that you might want to join, again, to expand your network. So you've now used one profile to piggyback and get 3 other types of results that you wouldn't have been able to otherwise get.
And this is why you need to keep track of time, because I'm already sucked into this black hole and I don't know him.
Well, I think we are out of time today, so happy to answer any last minute questions.
Contact information is at the end of your presentation.
It's throughout. I mean, it's in the slides here.
Okay. All right.
But I think the best way would be for people to really just reach out to that srcn.co/me, because that's.
I will include that when I send you the URL link for the video recording of this session.
That has everything, it's got my LinkedIn, my Facebook, everything. Whatever you want to use, you can use to connect me.
Oh my goodness gracious. Are you on all of those channels? I'm not on all those channels. Wow. I must be slacking.
Well, I was promoting myself, looking for a job. So I ended up.
You're doing great.
Doing all that. So.
Very good. Very good. Thank you. Much appreciated. Great information. And so forth and so on. And all right. Yes, that's about it. So I think we're done for today. Thank you so much, Shally. I definitely am interested in having you back and sharing all your tidbits and information. I saw a couple different slide presentations. We're going to have to steal you for all of those as well. Very good. Well, thank you again. I will be in touch with you regarding the URL for this recording, as well as Shelly's contact information and our next event. So have a good day. Stay dry, everyone, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Good luck. Bye-bye.